Joe here from the Working Fans Podcast. And at the Working Fans Podcast, this is just a podcast that three lifelong fans created to have a place to talk comedy and pro wrestling. Now, our comedy podcast releases every Tuesday, while our wrestling podcast releases every Thursday. We release bonus episodes under the moniker Working Fans Presents every now and then. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, any major podcast provider. The important thing is just please like, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to us. Now, we have started a new thing. We are now on Amazon and Audible. So those episodes release every Monday. And that's kind of going through the archives and just releasing our old episodes into new areas. So if you want to live through the process with us again, take that journey with us again, you can find us over on Amazon and Audible. Now, if you can't get enough of us in the audio form, check out our YouTube. It's youtube.com/C/Working Fans Wrestling Pod, or just search Working Fans Podcast on YouTube. We have the whole archive is up there. And if you listen to the Working Fans Podcast, you are more than familiar with the 531. That is our signature segment where we take your top 5 lists on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and then debate it down to a top 1. Now, guys, if you want to hear 3 guys talk shit about comedy, wrestling, life, anything, you will enjoy the Working Fans Podcast.
All right, everybody. It's the Working Fans Podcast, but it's the debut of the Working Fans Combatcast. And as always, I'm the man they call Dave. We got our brand new co-host for this show, my friend. You're going to know him, Chevy. Chevy, what's going on?
Hey. How's it going?
Good, man. Good. What were you doing before we started today? Anyway, that's all your curveball right here.
I was eating dinner.
Had
some, the wife made some rice and beans.
Good woman.
Yeah.
My mom would love that.
She takes care of me.
Spanish heritage.
Yeah.
I was just trying to fish because I know you drink a lot of Chevy's a beer connoisseur here, so I was just kind of wondering what you had there.
Oh. This would be. I'll show the can.
Let's take a look. Debut. No pressure. Okay, so New England astronaut.
Super not. Quality.
That's what I love. All right, one more quick question here before we get into MMA. How long have you probably would say you've been and I don't think this is offensive, a beer nerd? Right?
Probably 8 years or so.
8 years. Okay,
yeah.
So we're 21. And now the segue, how long have you been a big fan of MMA?
Not as long. Probably 5 or 6 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
Big fan? Yeah.
Right.
Fairly casual before that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was the first MMA show you saw? I'm trying to remember.
The first one I came to see with you guys, that would be Anderson Silva and Nick Diaz.
The famous laying down. Yeah, such a great moment.
That was great. Yeah. I was hooked.
Yeah. That's okay. So that's something we're going to talk about in future episodes. But that's what's kind of fun about MMA. There's the showmanship, and then there's just the purity of mixed martial arts when you start to really get to know some of these guys. For me, I remember hooked me from a pro wrestling background was Chael Sonnen with these wild, out of control promos. talking all kinds of shit about everybody. It was like pro wrestling coming to a real fight. And season 10 of The Ultimate Fighter, Rampage and Rashad, both great trash talkers, getting each other's face. Plus Kimbo Slice was in there. Yeah, he had the YouTube following, and I already knew about him, so that kind of hooked me too. And that kind of stuff was just great. But like as I got into it too, some of the other stuff, like I pitched. I don't know if I ever talked to you about this, but like UFC had a thing called UFC Primetime. It's like these little specials they would do, and one of the first ones I saw was about Carlos Condon as he was getting ready to fight Nick Diaz, and he's just like this educated kind of family guy, but he also just loves to fight. And I'm like, okay, I like this dude. Like, I want to see him do well, kick ass, and it hooked me.
The natural born killer, yeah.
Yeah. Now, who were some your favorites, like now and as you got into it?
Let's see. When I first got into it, definitely Rory McDonald.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
The Red King. So he had some real great wars. Also like his mentality. He's got that very cold serial killer-esque, scary mentality. You know?
Yeah. What was Okay. Yeah. So that's what kind of intrigued you about him. What was the first fight you saw with him?
Obviously the one that sticks out the most is the Lawler fight, where his nose is pulverized. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first one that I remember being like, "Oh, this guy's like one of my favorites," you know?
Yeah. It was an insane fight too. I was there on my honeymoon. And I remember just watching that fight, and there were a couple casuals in the front. I'll just say there were a couple young girls, and the fight started off in the first round a little bit slow, and they had no patience for this. And like, wow, were they? They got sucked in. That changed quick.
I've never seen anyone's face look the way that Rory McDonald's face looked by the end of that fight. I remember when they were blowing the blood out in between rounds, staring down at one another, like they wouldn't go back to their corners. Oh, man, so crazy.
Robbie Lawler had that chunk of his lip.
Oh, that was the one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. Yeah. What an animal.
I ever thinking too, watching live. I mean, you were watching it at our buddy Kristen's house, and I remember because normally I would be there, and I remember I was always kind of wondering what you guys thought, because to me live, when I saw him cover up his nose and just fall, I had never seen anything like that happen, where it was just a cumulative damage to the nose. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah, the commentary team I remember talking about his nose a lot, how he couldn't breathe at all, and as soon as he took that shot, there's a little bit of a hesitation, and then you could just see he had enough. Yeah, but never see it. Definitely, I love Rory, but it definitely seemed like a I quit sort of moment.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, it's a tremendous injury he was sustaining, which still affects him, I'm pretty sure, in his fights now, and he bleeds real easily.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever like totally mentally recovered from that fight.
Well, no, that took part of his soul, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I
think Robbie Lawler went on to have definitely another war with Carlos Condon too, and maybe one other one I'm forgetting. Obviously, he had the Hendricks, but it wasn't too long too where Robbie Lawler wasn't the same after that too.
No, yeah. I think pretty sure Woodley knocked him out only a few fights after that too.
Yeah.
So
isn't that like one of the most, for me, like interesting things about MMA is the rise and fall of people, and like the comeback, and that's one of the things I just love, because it's like there could be people like, we got a buddy Cran he's casual, and he'll message us.
Casual's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. He's casual. He's casual trash. Anyway, I'll send him a soundbite. He says things to me like, "Oh God, who did this win the title? Charles Oliveira," and he's sending me like a message. Isn't that guy that a few years ago we saw lose to Frankie Edgar? I'm like, yeah, like 9 years ago, bro.
Yeah.
Like he's a much
That's
better.
A long time ago.
Yeah. Much better, well-rounded fighter. And I don't know. That's one of the amazing things I think I like about the sport is just the unpredictability of it. And not everything's going to have a happy ending. You want it to, right? You want it to. You want your guy to win, but you just know that it might not be that night. And not every card's going to be great. And that's another thing. Like, I hate that in the moment, but I also like that's what makes the exciting cards even better. I think.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's really stood out with the fans. You notice the fighters. You didn't realize how much they fed off the fans before, but you notice since they've been back in the arenas, we've had some pretty killer fights.
Yeah, I think the last 2 pay-per-views have been like amazing, and and we're not really. I wasn't planning on us really previewing like this weekend, but as we're recording this, Stylebender versus Marvin Vettori, and I know you're very interested because you were a fan of Marvin and you love Stylebender, and I think that this is it's a sleeper because it's one of those fights where when they fought each other, we didn't really know how good both these guys were. And especially Stylebender. And Marvin was like really close to beating him. But we've seen Stylebender make such improvements that, like, one of the key things that I noticed him was in the Kelvin Gastelum fight, which was a war. But when he pulled off that triangle choke on the bottom at one point and almost got a submission, I'm like, this isn't just a striker.
Nah. He, I mean, that fight was, I think, like 3 years ago. And I think Adesanya's had maybe the like quickest rise to being, considered one of the best in the promotion.
Yeah.
It seems like he's been there forever because he's fought quite a few times, but he just has dominated pretty much since that fight, which was a split decision, I think.
Right.
I remember watching that one. I think we were watching at our local sports bar or whatever at the time. I remember showing up early and watching on the little TV in the booth because it wasn't on the big TVs yet.
Right.
I remember watching that fight, thinking I just excited because I'd never seen any Italian fighter. So that was the first thing that drew me to Marvin. But Stylebender, artist in the octagon for sure.
What are you thinking this weekend? I'll ask for a little prediction here.
So obviously both guys have improved a lot, but Adesanya coming off that loss to Jan at light heavyweight, thinking he's going to be itching to get that one back. Plus, I think he thought he won that first fight pretty handedly, and I think he's probably looking to put a stamp on this one. I think he probably knocks Marvin out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not ruling out Marvin, but I definitely think the smart money's on Stylebender. It's a good card too.
Great card.
Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards.
Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, which was fight of the year contender.
Yeah, that was so good. I was so excited. We watched that, I think, separately. I think because this is like around the COVID. I think one of our friends might have had COVID. So I don't remember the whole story, but we were separate. And I remember like we were all just texting each other like, "What is this fight? Like this fight is insane." I'm gonna say, and we'll get back to like some of our favorite stuff, but I'm gonna say.
I think you cut out on me. Oh.
And we're back.
We call Dave.
Yeah.
I didn't get your prediction.
Yes, I think that Leon Edwards, just because he's been so consistent, and that's not one of those things too. Both fighters have been off, So I just think that Leon Edwards has been a very consistent fighter, whereas Nate is always tough, but I don't know if he's as well rounded as Leon Edwards too. And Leon Edwards consistently shows up. He consistently keeps improving. So I think the smart money is on Leon, but I will say, whenever you get into a boxing match with Nate Diaz or any Diaz brother, sometimes you are playing into their game. So
Dangerous.
hopefully, yeah, and Leon does like to box. So I hope that he's versatile in his game, and I think he will be. But that will be the one thing that I will say, that if he just turns this into a boxing match, that might be a mistake. And it's just 5 rounds, a non-title 5 round.
I was just going to bring that up. I think that it is a 5-round fight, which favors Diaz because, he starts off pretty slow, cowboy-esque, and he just gets going.
Yeah,
as they go on. So I don't know if I've seen Leon in a 5-round fight, so I guess we'll see what his cardio is like. I can't imagine it's poor. He's a very well-rounded guy. So I think I saw a betting line where Diaz was like plus 500. So it's going to be a tough fight for him, especially being off. He's getting older now.
Yeah.
He's, in his mid-30s.
He's one of those guys like Connor, though. If he gets a big win, he's like right in a title contention because of that name value.
Right, especially beating Leon Edwards.
Right.
He might just be next in line if he could talk his way into it.
I could definitely see that. Now, the one other fight, I'll just get your opinion on before we get back. Brendan Moreno, Davidson Figueroa.
Davison, yeah.
I know. Like our buddy would always call him Devious, but
yeah.
Who you got? I got. My heart says Moreno, and it's so close, so I'm just gonna go with Moreno. I'm gonna go with my heart, but I think
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Figueiredo definitely has the power advantage.
Yeah.
But in the scrambles, I don't know. The fight was so close, obviously. But if he can make it past the first round without getting knocked out, I think I'd go with Brandon.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. He's just a likable guy.
He really is. He's super likable. He's definitely the guy I'm going for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, getting back to face. So your favorite fighter, especially when you got into it, was Rory McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
And we might have covered the next two, but I'm curious because we're talking about that fight with Lawler. What are some? Well, give me a couple then. Give me some of your favorite early on fights, and maybe a couple of your early on favorite cards. I feel like UFC 189 is going to be in there though.
189 was great. You know what? Another fight that really got me excited early on was Max Holloway, Ricardo Lamas. As a fight where Max was, pretty handedly winning the fight. And I got to the end and he, pointed at the ground because Ricardo was chasing him around the whole time. He just parted and they just went at it, just winging, like to risk it like that. That was great.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's definitely and that's probably a moment where you start to become a big fan of Max, I imagine.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's probably my favorite fighter now, I'd say. Favorite UFC fighter for sure.
And he's got a potential fight with one of your other favorite fighters, right? Yair Rodriguez?
Yes, yeah. I'm a bit torn on that one, but yeah.
Yair's got probably arguably the most exciting knockout in a fight of all time. With 1 second remaining, a fight he's using an upward elbow.
Finish a zombie, yeah.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
It doesn't get finished, so.
No.
That's so crazy. That was a great war, too, all the way up until the end. He's probably losing that fight, but it was real close. Just got him with that upward elbow while he was rushing in.
Another moment, too, where I remember sitting back going, like, is this, like, for what happened?
Yeah, wasn't sure what happened, yeah. I thought maybe it was a headbutt or something.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, that was great.
I'm trying to remember too. Like he's another guy too, though. Yair. I feel like he's constantly improving as well, though. Like every time we see him, he goes away for a while. He gets beat up though. that's the thing. Like, he gets beat up, but then it seems like he makes the most of his time off. But boy, that Max Holloway is certainly a tall order to come back to. Huh?
Especially after his last couple fights. You know, I wouldn't want to fight Max if I was Yair right now. But it's funny. It's a weird fight for Max to take, you'd think. You think he'd be going title shot or nothing, but, you know, that's not the way he is. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about the belts. He just wants to fight.
Yeah.
Just throw someone in front of him. Pay him.
Best. Now, all right, I'm going to throw a couple other names at you here, and then I think that'll be it for this episode. But let's see. Conor McGregor. What are your thoughts on Conor?
I guess it depends what time period of Conor you're asking me about. So early on, Conor,
I love him.
I was a big fan. Yeah. Exciting, you know. When he was fighting, when he actually wanted to get in there and fight, I was a big fan of Conor. And as it became more Floyd Mayweather-esque,
yes,
less of a fan. And you know, I still respect him. Because he doesn't ever need to fight, but he gets in there once in a while.
Yeah, and he fights like he's not fighting YouTubers.
Right, yeah. Not fighting any YouTubers. No.
He's fighting like people that could actually beat him up and hurt him. I find Conor overall, as long as he stays out of legal trouble and doesn't do stupid things, I think overall he's one of those guys that can be good for the sport because he brings such eyes and attention. So I always find myself kind of rooting for him, but like, I'm also a big fan of guys like Dustin Poirier. Like, you know, like my heart won't. Like, I was happy Poirier won the last fight, you know. But I don't kind of want to see. It's tough. Like, I don't want to see Conor out of superstar contention. I like having this mega star.
The stories,
right? Yeah, it's great for the business, and I know there's going to be a certain fan base out there who's just going to shit on it. Like, no, fuck him, get him out. But it's like,
that's my wife.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's good. I get it. I understand it. But to me, it's like, nah, man, he's so good for the business as long as he stays out of trouble. And I'm not saying I want to see him rule the world, but I'd like to see him in a few other possible big fights, and you know, eventually, almost pro wrestling. Like, I'd like to see him do the job again on the way out, put somebody over, and you know, I think we make a big superstar in a perfect world. I bet you Dana White feels that way.
I bet you he does too, yeah.
Now, you've been to – have you ever been to a UFC event live?
Not UFC. Bellators, right. But no UFC events.
What would you say is the most exciting event we went to live? I think I've been to pretty much the ones you went to. We haven't – hasn't been a lot of great Bellators.
No, we've kind of been striking out in our Bellators, you know.
Yeah.
I like watching them on TV personally. I like hearing the commentary, you know, getting the little video packages beforehand to get you all hyped up.
Sure.
And you don't get the same energy as being in the crowd, but you're not getting beer spilled on you and a bunch of casuals yelling combinations, you know.
Yeah. I have to say, since I've been to a few UFC cards, I will say this. You have an interesting point. With the exception being the Conor McGregor cards I went to, because it was such an electric feel, having all these crazy Irish people in the crowd and everything like that. That made it almost an experience. But I saw Rockhold and Machida, good little fun fight card. Rockhold coming out to "You're the best around."
Of course he did.
Yeah, was absolutely hilarious, and that made for a funny moment. But yeah, it probably would have been better to watch that. That card would have been a card I could have watched at home and everything like that. So unless it's like a maybe mega special event, like yeah, maybe it is better. UFC events are one of those things that play out better at the house.
Yeah, I like being able to, you know, have the discussion with all the rest of the group about what's going on or whatever, instead of yelling over whoever's with you.
Are we, out of our friends, are we the most hardcore MMA fans? I would say Scott maybe is a close.
Maybe Scott is up there too.
Yeah. We definitely
Kristen, we have to pitch him every card get him to show up. So let's Stylebender. He's all in on Stylebender.
Yeah, he got into the Stylebender, which is good.
It's a good gauge for who's a superstar
Yes.
and who the fuck is that guy or whatever, you know?
Is your wife a bigger fan than Kristen, you think, at this point?
Ooh, it's close. It's close. Yeah. They probably know about the same amount of fighters. My wife is ride or die for a few fighters, though. So
yeah, I think she might edge him out a little bit.
Yeah.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah, they can go at any moment. Yeah. All right. On that note, that's a little bit about us. I think as we go on, we're going to talk about, at least in these early episodes, maybe have a few discussions about certain aspects of MMA and combat sports. And we might even profile a few fighters and talk about people we like. You know what? We're talking about showmanship, but we're talking about, like, you know, martial artists. And, like, one of the guys that popped in my head, like, in terms of, like, he's entertaining, but he's also very gritty, and he's a martial artist, was Michael Bisping. And I thought, man,
love Michael Bisping.
Yeah, and I don't know if I always did, so I feel like that's a fun guy to talk about. Mm-hmm. So, but all right, everybody, that will be it for the debut episode. You get a little teaser of what we're about. This is the Working Fans Combatcast for Dave, and that's me, and Chevy. We're out.
See ya.